Can everybody see that okay? Excellent. Thank you. Then Elena, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Agnes, and thank you, Jessica, of course, for the introduction. I'm really thrilled to be here. We had a great call on Saturday, and I'm hoping this is going to be just as good. I want to start with saying if you're here today, you already know the firsthand challenges and also the deep joy that comes from parenting multiple children, and especially one with a particular medical condition. It's because you pour your heart out, your energy, your resources into caring for your children. That's because that's what loving parents do. But along the way, maybe there are times when you're wondering, how does my neurotypical child or grandchildren, how are they feeling? Are they getting enough of my attention? Do they know that they're equally loved even when my focus must shift to medical demands or procedures of some sort? So I want you to know first and foremost that you're not alone with those feelings and questions. And that's exactly why we're here today. And again, my name is Elena. As Jessica shared, I'm a licensed mental health counselor and professional counselor, and I also serve as a middle school youth co-director at my local church. And over the last 15 years, I have seen how crucial it is to support parents when their children have differing needs. And I hope to give that support here today. Great. Thank you, Agnes, and thank you, Jessica, of course, for the introduction. I'm really thrilled to be here. We had a great call on Saturday, and I'm hoping this is going to be just as good. I want to start with saying if you're here today, you already know the firsthand challenges and also the deep joy that comes from parenting multiple children, and especially one with a particular medical condition. It's because you pour your heart out, your energy, your resources into caring for your children. That's because that's what loving parents do. But along the way, maybe there are times when you're wondering, how does my neurotypical child or grandchildren, how are they feeling? Are they getting enough of my attention? Do they know that they're equally loved even when my focus must shift to medical demands or procedures of some sort? So I want you to know first and foremost that you're not alone with those feelings and questions. And that's exactly why we're here today. And again, my name is Elena. As Jessica shared, I'm a licensed mental health counselor and professional counselor, and I also serve as a middle school youth co-director at my local church. And over the last 15 years, I have seen how crucial it is to support parents when their children have differing needs. And I hope to give that support here today. So today I'm going to share some practical strategies by using very well supported psychology to help you nurture all of your children's unique paths with the goal of each of your children feeling secure, loved, and valued for exactly who they are. All right, so let's begin. Next slide. Thanks. We'll start with an overview quickly of our time together. The focus will be on the family unit, emphasizing the needs of the neurotypical siblings. Our presentation generally is going to focus on being able to recognize what the neurotypical sibling could use more of. And this is because we want them to feel seen and supported. And we believe that when everyone feels that way, the entire family unit is strengthened. I've seen this play out in so many families. When each sibling feels secure and emotionally grounded, we know that all siblings become more empathetic towards one another. And then they carry that confidence into school, friendships, and other life decisions. And we're here to talk more about that. That would be the ways to create balance and harmony in your family and in your relationship with your neurotypical child. But How will you know what your child actually needs developmentally, emotionally? Well, that's what the study of human development is in psychology, and it gives us a great framework to work with. It becomes so valuable since our children will have different needs at different stages of development. I want to give you some of the tips so that we can meet those needs through understanding the stage of development. And ultimately, when we're providing and meeting those needs, we're developing a great sense of self for all of our children and their relationship with you. So let me introduce you to the theory of human development as founded by Eric Erikson. Next slide. Great. Okay. So as you're looking at these stages here, I want you to consider this being a very simple roadmap for your child's development. One that tells you here is what they need most at each stage of life to feel secure and loved. This is exactly what Erickson's theory offers us. So whether you're juggling therapy appointments, different assessments, as we've already talked about today, or just keeping a household running, this framework is going to help ease your decision making. Why? Well, because knowing where your children is, where your child is, where your children are developmentally means you can meet them right where they are. And that's the genius part of Erickson's framework is he was able to not only discover but identify with clarity each phase's purpose and the core challenge that each developmental stage sets before us to complete. So as we, or however we address this challenge, it sets the tone for the following stage. And ultimately, as we go through many stages, it is how children see themselves. This would be how they see themselves as far as their self-esteem, how they see themselves in relation to us and to the world at large. So over the next slides, I'm going to break down all of these major stages that you see here: early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, and early adulthood. And then for each of those stages, I'll share Erickson's sort of key insight and challenge that you should know, and then offer at least 3 practical tips that you can apply at that stage. And then my hope is by the end, you feel more equipped to celebrate your child's growth no matter what else life brings. Okay, on to the next slide. Great. We'll start here at early childhood. So when you're picturing this age range, I want you to picture the 4-year-old who's sort of bouncing their way, running to you with whether it be balls in their hand, like this child in the slide, or a crayon drawing, and they're just eager for you to just stop everything and say, wow, that's amazing, that kind of a thing. That is initiative in action, right? So you can see that the psychosocial challenge of this is to get a sense, this stage of life is to get a sense of how to insert themselves, right? Again, this is initiative. The stage is roughly 3 to 5 years old, and children are discovering their independence, right? They want to try new things, they want to test boundaries, but they really want to hear you cheer them on. And in a family that's balancing complex medical demands, a neurotypical child might feel guilty for wanting attention because you're juggling so much else. Well, we want you to hold this in mind because if a child's bids for attention are repeatedly overlooked, they might internalize this idea that their curiosity and their creativity is a burden. And this may lead to a personality that's sensitive to guilt instead of having the confidence in their reasons for taking initiative based on their own thoughts. People who freely take initiative assume that they have an idea worth doing or worth sharing, and that they generally do the right thing. And that's what we want to build in our children. So I'll share with you 3 very practical ways you can do this in every day. The first way is to praise their small acts of initiative as you see them, right? So whether they set the table or just mix some paint colors together. You can celebrate the effort. Something simple like, wow, oh, look at what you did here. I'm so glad you jumped in. Or what colors you chose, even if there's nothing quite to identify yet at this age range. Just want to keep the enthusiasm alive when you respond to them. And then secondly, we're talking about teaching a gentle tap and wait system. And I want you to think of this moment, and I'm sure you have a few of these in your bank. How many of you have had a child who interrupts like the moment you pick up your phone to make a call, especially? Well, that we can all think of at least one time because it's so normal. The key is teaching them that needing attention isn't wrong, but that there's a respectful way to ask for it. So let's say you're busy. You can invite the child to gently tap you or place their hand on your shoulder while saying, "Excuse me," and then wait. And if you want to, you can briefly place your hand on theirs to acknowledge them. And then once you're finished, you can ask them what they were looking for, or if they're going to immediately go into the conversation that they had been holding for you. That's perfect because you're giving them your full attention. Now, this polite interruption teaches patience, and ultimately, they don't feel guilty for needing you. They will learn to respond in this way, and that you will respond to them when you're able to. And then, thirdly, is starting a routine of wants nothing quality time. And this is a term coined by Magda Gerber. And essentially, it is 5 minutes, ideally 15 at this age, but 5 minutes is sometimes all we have to sit on the floor with no agenda. Just observe, listen, let them lead the play or craft. And this focused presence sends such a powerful message. It says, "You matter to me, and I'm here to see what you can do, what you want to do." That is essentially valuing the small efforts, right? It's reducing the guilt because we want to keep in mind that also at this age from 3 to 5, there's a lot of correction. And that's good for us to do too. We absolutely want to be teaching right and respectful from wrong. As long as you find ways that build that good initiative, excuse me, even on days when time and energy are short, you will be helping them meet the psychosocial challenge of this developmental stage. And that sets the stage for the next phase, middle childhood, where children, they start to shift from wanting to try new things to wanting to master them. And let's take a look at how you can sort of support them in this next stage with a greater sense of confidence. Okay, we have 6 to 11 years old here in our middle childhood. I want you to picture the quintessential 8-year-old sort of proudly showing you their latest Lego invention or a spelling quiz where there's like a bunch of tricky sight words and just hoping for a moment of your full attention. Well, that is the heart of the psychosocial challenge of industry versus inferiority. At this stage, children crave a chance to master new skills and shine in front of you. How many of you can kind of remember, or maybe you have a child who loves to be in charge at home, whether that's like handing something out or setting the rules for a board game, something like that? Well, that is the industry phase in action. And we're going to lean into it because it matters. Because a child who feels overlooked when they are feeling as though they're doing something well might give up trying, right? And we want to develop a healthy drive in our children. And we don't want them to slip into like being very sensitive to self-doubt or feeling inferior to others. And I'm going to talk about 3 practical ways we can do this every day. First is giving meaningful chores and teaching alongside until they can be independent. So You'll assign small but real tasks that you will hope that they will do independently in future stages, right? You're thinking prepping for dinner, folding laundry, caring for a pet. And first, you teach them and then you let go slowly, right? You're showing them the steps side by side instead of assuming that they can do it with verbal instructions alone. This is a fail-proof way to build a sense of contribution to the family, sense of competence without overwhelming them with responsibility and correction. And it can sound really, really simple. You can say, hey, let's set the table together. And as you're doing it and you're telling them where they can find all of the items for the table, you can also say, well, show me how you want to arrange it so they can bring themselves into it. And then eventually, after they do this with very few pieces of input for you, you can have them set the table and they will feel very proud to tell you that they did it the way that they did, however they chose to do it. And we want to see what lights them up, right? And this is second here. And we want to gently encourage even more exploration related to their interests, right? We want to build on their talents, whether it be in sports, arts, or STEM. You know, if they love drawing, get a sketch pad. If they're curious about how things work, maybe finding a simple building kit. You know, the goal isn't to pressure them at all, but it's permission to pursue what interests them. And if you can, invite them to teach you something too. Like, did they learn a new soccer, dance move, craft technique? Let them show you. Them being the expert boosts their self-esteem. And it's even better if you can't do it and they can, right? It reminds them, this whole experience reminds them of them being the competent one. And it's really meaningful to them and how they build into their personality, that sense of self-confidence. The last one that I'll share for this age group is having a ritual at the end of the day by telling them you notice their effort or their skills. Bedtime is perfect. You would just take a moment to reflect on what they did well that day or what you heard that they did well that day, because sometimes our days are so busy we don't spend that much time with them. So this is a simple ritual. It builds self-worth in a powerful way. We don't have to spend much time of it with it. It can be as simple as, I saw you helped your brother today without me asking. That shows great leadership. It was really kind of you. Something like that. It doesn't have to be related to family too. It could be like, hey, bud, I heard that you stuck with that tricky homework problem. I'm really proud of you, right? Something super simple. Even the busiest of us can do it. And when you're highlighting their efforts, not just their results, you're teaching children that who they're becoming is even more important than what they achieve. And as they're moving into their teenage years, the question shifts. It's no longer just, am I capable? Am I good at this? It becomes, who am I really? So let's look at how we can support some healthy identity building during adolescence. Great. So we have this 12 to 18 years old here. I want you to think of the quintessential teenager. You can picture them in your mind, trying out different haircuts, clothing styles, friend groups, and even passions, seemingly all of a sudden. This is the heart of finding identity versus role confusion. You know, at this stage, teens are often asking, who am I apart from my family? Who can I be? They're trying to figure out where they belong and what's cool for them to like. And for the neurotypical siblings, that process can feel more complicated if they feel like no one else has experiences like theirs at home. So we want to counter that. We want to counter these things where we see teens who feel this pressure to be the responsible one or the perfect one. And by that, I mean that they hide their struggles. but nor do we want them on the other end, very loud, rebellious phases where they are certain that they will not be overshadowed by any sibling. And we can absolutely do this. We can keep them within the range of exploration. And it sounds counterintuitive, but what your child needs at this time is not just praise, but space. Space to think, question, experiment, kind of find their sense of self. And there are three ways here that I'm going to talk about that. The first one is creating time for communication. This is first and foremost, it can be anywhere. Car rides, walks, going on a run, if that's kind of doable where you live and their thing. But ideally, it's late night, casual moments where talking and bonding feel natural. And that's because teens open up when they don't feel pressured. And once a day, we have this distance from the school day. That's the perfect time. And I'm not asking you to dive into heavy topics. I would love it if you created a talk anytime kind of culture. Very simply, you would say, you can bring anything up to me whenever you need. I'm here. Setting the tone for that and having the space for this communication is going to give you it is almost a key to adolescence years. And trust me, I know that you are tired at the end of the night, but evening is truly a prime time for them. Their defenses are lower, and that means you get a much more vulnerable, much more authentic teenager rather than the grumbly, quiet one that arrives right after school. Okay. Secondly, help them find like-minded kids in finding clubs, teams, youth groups, or any activities that match their interest. This shows that you see who they are and that you see what they value outside of the family identity or things that you do together. This is very similar to the last things we covered in middle childhood, but it's more of a social aspect rather than a skill improvement because we're already going to be investing in their skills. But when you're mentioning to them, oh, hey, there's a local chess group, or there's some auditions here for a theater club, something of that sort, I want you to add in that you think there will be people there around their age, right? So sort of invite them to try things that are going to connect them with people who have similar interests and around the same age. And this gets them to thinking about not only doing the task, but meeting people along the way. And lastly, this is also very important. If you have the time, just listen to them talk, even at length, about their very niched interests, whether it's a YouTuber and the updates there, gaming, hockey, skateboarding. Just don't tell them with your face or your body language that you don't care or it's not your thing. They know they're differentiating themselves from you. But I want you to show them that you really are interested in what matters to them. And I promise that this is going to translate into them opening up about their emotions in a way that is almost a secret. And they will feel like they really fit in your family, their family. It's because there's a safe place for communication. You're showing real interest in their world, and that helps them build a very solid sense of identity. One that's resilient, confident, and deeply rooted in being understood. They don't have to search for it anywhere else. And then they're going to move into adulthood, right? And the challenge is going to shift again. It's no longer about who they are and finding that. It's about them finding lasting relationships while staying true to themselves. So let's talk about how to support your adult child's journey into independence. Great. So we're thinking, 19 to 40 is the young adult here, according to Eric Erickson. And There are a lot of things that happen through this phase from the beginning of heading off to college, getting married, having children of their own. This is all of these things, although very different, essentially are the heart of the psychosocial challenge, right? Which is to establish intimacy versus isolation. So here, intimacy means being able to form like deep, committed, meaningful relationships across all areas, romantic, platonic, professional. And isolation would be its opposite, withdrawing emotionally, having, during this time, developing a real fear of vulnerability, a fear of commitment, or this belief that connecting and that deep connection just isn't possible for them. So to avoid that and to really hone into intimacy with our young adults and our adult children, we're going to focus on helping them build connections, right? While they're carving out their own independence. And for the neurotypical sibling, stepping into adulthood can come with added layers of guilt or uncertainty. We're thinking that maybe they're going to have some thoughts of, are they abandoning their family if they move away? Is it right for them to focus on their own life while so much is happening at home? These are common thoughts of people in a variety of different family settings. But you want to know that you have a connection with your adult child, that they know they are welcome to support this family in whatever ways work for them. And ultimately that you welcome their help when it's rooted in love and not in obligation. The beginning years of adulthood are tough in general and in many ways. So I want to share 3 powerful ways you can support them as they launch. So first, we're going to talk about just focusing your guidance on healthy communication. So instead of telling them how to handle the situation or giving them many warnings about what you see, I want you to ask much more reflective questions, more coaching-like questions, especially centered on healthy communication. It can sound like this. Okay, well, tell me, how do you think that conversation went? What was good about it? What was tough? How did it feel? How did you feel? And what would you want to say next time? Things like that. You're helping them to develop their voice in relationships. Again, we talked about professional relationships, so their careers as well. And you're fine-tuning any emotional boundaries because this is crucial for adulthood. And that's why your coaching still matters. And secondly, as they're, again, this stage will be really based on creating that independence. It is still appropriate for you to offer invitations to come back home or meet for a meal, right? Make sure that they know home is a safe place to land, not a trap or an obligation. You want to keep the connection always open-ended and say something of the sort of like, you're always welcome to come back here and regroup if you need to. Or keeping the enthusiasm high of let's meet for dinner when you're free. I heard this restaurant is great. Knowing your child, you pick one of the things that they like to eat there and include it in the invitation. This is because we want to reassure them that independence isn't about separation, it's growth with roots. We want them to always see home as a place they'd love to return to. And lastly, it is so necessary that you offer practical and like really nuanced help to support the real life skills that they need. Could be greater understanding of financial literacy, from budgeting, credit scores, loans, investing, all of those sorts of things. We can be offering to review contracts or leases before they sign. Maybe their college student is thinking of going off campus for the first time, and you would say, hey, would it help if I read through that a rental agreement before you send it back? And although they're going to be living on their own, they know that they have you along the way. And of course, as they get older, if they have children, offering your help with childcare is is so helpful, but also we're thinking of ways that that can help them in their career. When you are putting all of this together, you have the emotional support, the connection points, this guidance, you're really empowering your adult child to step fully into their future with a sense of strength, wisdom, but also knowing that they deserve great and healthy relationships. Okay. So we've walked through all the stages of development. Let's do a quick review of the connection points. I want to make it even more simple for you so that you can see how, even at the busiest of schedules, you can still have that one-on-one time. And I don't want you to think, my gosh, my life is so full. We just heard so many tips for so many ages, but the truth is it's not about adding more pressure to your day. It's about finding small, consistent ways of showing up, even in tiny moments, with focused attention that can fill your child's emotional tank in really powerful ways. As you can see here, it can be fit into even the most full schedules, right? Remember, it's not about grand gestures. From 3 to 5, we're talking about maybe some routine playtime before cooking. And you don't have to set up the play, you don't have to set up crafts. You can just be there and see what toys they gravitate to naturally and wrap it up. And they know, okay, mom sits down with me, dad sits down with me beforehand, and then they go to cook dinner. Around that 6 to 11 years old, it would be fun to do a monthly date with mom and dad. Even if it doesn't happen every single month, as long as there is a ritual to it, that it feels common. It's great. From that 12 to 18 range, as many nights as possible, whatever fits into your schedule, but showing up consistently, having that unwinding time together, it fills them up in a way that fills you up. And okay, so as they're 19 to 40, something that's very common with my clients is calling their parents as they're commuting home from work. Sometimes it's a lot once you get home and it just becomes a routine. So maybe it's once a week they do this and it's a set time, and you are just there to hear again what they have to do and offer some coaching at that time, just reassuring them that you hear what's going on in their life and you hear that they're building great relationships. A few minutes at a time with your full presence is phenomenal. And we are talking about a lot of great things in little ways that have great impact, but there is no such thing as perfection. With all the best time management and energy management, tough emotions will still come up. So then how do we help neurotypical children handle feelings like anxiety, resentment, frustration without shutting them down? Well, we validate and then we guide them through. We were looking at the bigger timeline of life, so we're kind of zooming into, at any one point in time, how do we build consistent systems? But also, it's not about each and every specific emotion having a grand specific plan, because all of these feelings, jealousy, sadness, frustration, anxiety, they're normal. And we don't want to eliminate those feelings, especially not by force. We really want them to be able to manage their emotions, know that they're normal, and know how to show that they're feeling that, process it without it going too far. Right? Even Eric Exon, he himself believed that both freedom and structure are needed at every developmental stage. And that's because when we're guiding with, thinking of validation without boundaries, that's chaos. But validation with clear limits, that leads to emotional safety. And that's what we want for our children. And it's very simple, but complicated and nuanced in each situation. The simple process is essentially: first, name the emotion. Second, set the limit. And 3, offer a healthy outlet. I'll play it out a little bit with you, right? First, we're naming the emotion, right? We're doing that without judgment at the time, right? For little kids, we keep it very simple. You sound mad. For teens, a bit more of an inflection to kind of make it sound like a question. You sound sarcastic, feeling annoyed, something of that sort. Like, we want to keep it short because if we really are here to correct any behavior or guide any behavior if necessary. The emotional acknowledgement is the frame so that they know we're talking about the action and not the person, that we see what is happening. And that's what leads us to normalize the second part, right? That's normalizing the feeling, but not the behavior if it's inappropriate. Again, we're thinking of showing them that we understand everything that's happening here, and we're trying to keep our cool while we're doing it, right? Setting healthy boundaries around how emotions are expressed. For little kids, it is just saying it very much like it is what it is, right? You can tell them it's okay to be mad, but it's not okay to hit, right? Super simple. Again, with teens, it sounds the same, right? I get that you feel frustrated, but it's not okay to yell at others, right? And then you're going to lead them into a healthy outlet. For our younger kids, maybe it's being there a little bit longer, physically hugging them, helping them go through this. Do you need something to eat? Do you need a nap? Do you need to lay down? Something of that sort. Do you need to stomp your feet? Maybe we won't be telling that to our teens, but we will be able to tell them it's okay to cry. You can let it out. You want to take a walk? Do you want to play some music, right? Or do you want to talk later? I'm here for you, but we can't do this, whatever the thing is that's being done that you're saying, hey, this is just disrespectful in our family. Now, these are really general examples. You know your child. Try to be specific when you can. But most of the time, as parents, we're being very repetitive, so that's good news, right? We're being patient through them learning how to manage emotions, and we're being patient with ourselves as well. We're not fixing every problem. This is just a reminder. We're not keeping our children happy 100% of the time. What we're doing is we're trying to give our very best at raising emotionally well-adjusted children. Next slide. Thank you. So you've taken in a lot today. I hope you're leaving, again, not just with ideas, but with a sense of encouragement and validation that you have been doing some of these things already. And maybe you're hearing just a few more ideas to add in. I want to remind you that when you're showing up with empathy, with grace, you show your whole family that love doesn't have to be divided to be whole. And again, I want to really thank you for allowing me to share this space with you all. You're all doing amazing, amazing.